Happy Tuesday, my friends. Happy Tuesday. Remodelers on the Rise, live with your host, Kyle Hunt. And today we have this question that's on the table. What is something you need to fix in your remodeling business, and why? What is something you need to fix in your remodeling business? That's one part of it. But just as important, if not more important, is the second half of that, which says, and why? I posed this question on the Remodelers Community Facebook group. Are you part of that, by the way? If you go to remodelerscommunity.com, it's an awesome group. It's free. And you can learn a lot. But I posed it. 9 people comment on it. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to reply via the Remodelers on the Rise show to what people said and give some just comments and some coaching and some direction so that they can help move forward in this thing they need to fix in the remodeling business. So that's the game plan for today. Could I get a little comment of something that's on your mind, or even just a hey, or a how you doing, or a like? I'd appreciate that. And outside of that, we're just going to get right to it. Oh, thank you, Kevin. I said like, and bam, there's a like. Bailey, thank you. Okay. All right. That chime, by the way, signifies going from one topic to the next. We'll use that as we move through here. And some of you may not be regular listeners of the Remodelers on the Rise show. Some of you may be listening to the podcast, and you might be thinking, what is this? Well, what this is an opportunity. Ooh, 5 likes. Hi, Chris. Ooh, Chris, I'm going to answer your question. Rob, I'm going to answer your question. Hi, Nancy. We got all kinds of people here, and Nancy says watching. Oh, and look at the lovebirds. Her profile picture is her and her younger looking husband there. Nancy still looks like she's 29 years old. You know, he's put on a few years, and it was his birthday last week. And Rob says hello. All right, rock and roll. We got a lively bunch here. So the first question was from Andrew Webster. He is with Soapstone out in beautiful Iowa. It's not often you hear those two words come together. Beautiful Iowa. You know, people might say beautiful Michigan, beautiful California, beautiful, warm Florida. But Andrew comes from beautiful Iowa. And what he said was estimating needs to be dialed in and focused because it's costing too much bloody money. So what is something you need to fix in your business, and why? You need to fix estimating. It needs to be dialed in, better focused, because it's costing too much bloody money. So I have a few thoughts, Andrew, for you on that, and anybody else who estimating is still something that you're continually working on. AKA, I have a few thoughts for literally every remodeler around the globe, or these fruited plains of America. And hi to you Canadians, because you're always going to be working on dialing in your estimating. You're always going to be working on this area of your business. So the why is my favorite part of that little statement that he made. That why of it's costing too much bloody money, meaning I realize I've got slippage. I was expecting to make this amount of money and I'm making less. I realize that I'm just flat out missing things. Doesn't that tick you off? Doesn't that tick you off that you're on a project and you just flat out didn't charge for that thing that's costing you $127? Ugh, right? It's because estimating's hard. P.S. The remodeling business is hard. But getting fired up about it and being like, enough. It's costing me too much stinking money and I need to fix this. Having that little fire in your belly is a huge part of fixing the issue. Frankly, that's a huge part of fixing anything in business or life. When you finally get to the point where you're like, enough is enough. You know, that's kind of the heart of maybe what I'm asking in the first place. What's something you need to fix in your business and why? Sometimes we just got to get fired up enough to have the energy to really tackle some of these issues. All right. So Andrew, because it's costing too much bloody money, just money down the drain. So a couple things that I wrote down as far as some comments or some feedback for you. Realizing you have some issues, huge step. And one thing is just you've got to move quickly, but don't rush. As a remodeler, you've got a lot of responsibilities. There's a lot of things you're doing. When it comes to estimating, move quickly, but don't rush. Move quickly, don't rush. Take your time. Good estimators have to carve out the time, have to take the time, have to look at things a second time, a third time, have to think through the scope of work and step back and put your hand on your chin and say, what am I missing here? What am I missing here? What am I missing here? You need to look at the hours that you have for a certain phase of the project and go, okay, is that enough? Is that enough? Is that enough? And you think of a project that was similar and you go back and you look at how many hours you had there. And then if you really got your I was about to say you got your stuff together, but I'll do something even more funny. If you really got your poop in a group, you get it? You get it? Then you're actually going to look and say, wow, I estimated X number of hours and it took me X amount when I did that project. I need to move that up. Okay. The other thing related to this is you want to become a better estimator, get really good at job costing. I need to work on getting my estimating dialing in. You can get your estimating dialed in so much more confidently and clearly when you're doing good job costing. Looking at, and Nancy, we were looking at a job cost report, and she flat out had $125 in there for permits, and it cost her $200. You know, that ticks me off. Going, that's easy money down the drain. That's sitting there going, man. If I would have just made a quick phone call, if I would have just thought through, you know, that particular municipality, you know, that feels like just $75 down the drain. But it wasn't until she's looking closely at her job costing that she made that realization that she just flushed $75 down the drain. And next time, that next estimate, they're going to adjust that and make sure they're covered there. Good job costing makes you a better estimator. So we need to work very hard to watch our job costing closely. And the last thing I had related to this one is if you go to Remodelers with an S, Remodelers Vault, V-A-U-L-T, remodelersvault.com, and you click in the estimating, there's just some good resources. There's a unit cost estimating form. There's some sample estimating sheets. There's some nice measuring guides. Take a look at remodelersvault.com, click on the estimating, and you can get in there. What Remodelers Vault is just this nice thing that we set up that's free of charge. And you can go in there and see just a bunch of different templates, tools, and resources. Some of you may be thinking, Kyle, you do Remodelers Vault, that's free. The Remodelers on the Rise show is free. How do you make money to support that family and 4 children of yours? Well, I do offer coaching, but more than that, if you want to sign up for Remodelers Autopilot, it's only $1. I can help you stay in touch with previous clients. You see that scrolling at the bottom of the screen? That would be a wonderful way of not only solving that problem in your business, but supporting yours truly. Okay, hi, Michaela. She also clicked in here. We got a couple comments. Nancy's laughing. I really appreciate that Andrew used the adjective bloody. I wish I was really, you know what I wish I was really good at like accents. Like that would be just a really good Australian accent, but I don't have any of that. All right, so there's some good ideas to Andrew's. Here's something that needs to be dialed in. Next one up. Michael Anschel said, we need to fix how we schedule our design projects in our calendar. We have so much work coming in. This is a problem, and we'll kind of put it in parentheses, right, of going, problem that we have right now is too much work. As a quick aside to that perspective, man, we are fortunate to be in an industry that is just kicking. Yes, we have issues with material prices. Yes, we have issues with material availability. Yes, we have issues with finding good help. But wow, we still are incredibly fortunate compared to so many other industries and businesses. So keep that perspective in mind. Michael brought this up a little bit. We talked about it a bit during the, speaking of Remodelers Autopilot. You get a done-for-you email newsletter. You get done-for-you social media posts. There's also a little Ask Kyle Anything call. And Michael brought this up on the Ask Kyle Anything call that we had last week. And I already know that he's kind of going in a good direction on this, where he's got a lot of design work, and he's making this connection of how do we properly schedule our production work. When we get that calendar out, we start looking at, our capacity of how much field labor we have. We look at how long these projects are going to take and the different phases of when my team will be needed. We just dig in and we really start to build out that production schedule. We look at how certain projects are overlaying each other. Right? It's hard work, but that's how we attack it. And Michael is kind of applying that philosophy to his design schedule of really getting clear of what phase of design are we expecting, by this date. And we've got this one starting and that's starting, and what's my designer capacity? He has a few designers on his staff. So he's already going in the right direction there, and I would just encourage, keep digging into that, Michael. And also what I was mentioning there is kind of looking at capacity. When you're thinking about your production capacity, one thing that is, I think it's a really simple thing, but I think it often gets overlooked is, how much truly do we have in backlog? There's a lot of factors to think about, but one of the quickest and clearest ways to do it is to look at just your in-house labor hours. So if you have 4 people in the field, 4 employees in the field swinging the hammer, you have 160 hours per week. Let's say best case scenario, you might have a little bit less than that, right? But 160 hours per week. If you have 1,800 hours sold, 1,800 divided by 160 is 10. So that's saying I've got 10 weeks of backlog, AKA look at your capacity of number of guys in the field and number of hours per week, and then look at your signed contracts, not the stuff that's still in design and development. Don't count those yet, but look at your signed contracts, and you add up your in-house labor hours on those jobs, and you're like, okay, I've got 10 weeks of work sold, signed, sealed, delivered for my team. That's an easy way to start to really understand your backlog a little bit better. And again, I don't like to include stuff that's in design and development. It doesn't hit that number, and it doesn't hit my schedule until that contract is signed. All right, cool. And then one other thing related to Michael's kind of thing that he's working on there is this reminder of client communication reduces stress. Client communication reduces stress. More than anything else, yes, clients want to see progress in their design or in their project or in the production of it, but more than anything else, they want to be communicated clearly. They want to make sure that they know you didn't forget about them. They want to know that you have a clear next step and deadline for them. Client communication reduces stress. There are people that even if you don't have good news, even if you don't have super, super specific news, you picking up the phone and calling them. Can I send an email? Can I send a text? You could, but if you really want to do it right, you pick up the phone and call them, and you say, hey, here's kind of the situation. Next week we're going to have some additional time to focus in on this, and just let them know what's going on, even if you don't have great answers or clear answers. All right, cool. So there was an answer to Michael's answer to what is something you need to fix in your business and why. So we've covered Andrew's, covered Michael's. Next up is Rob Wright. I saw Rob's actually watching this live, so here you go, Rob. I need a more organized sales process. It will help me. Why? It will help me with a better design process and be able to forecast revenue better. So Rob and I have done some work together. He's part of one of my Remodeler Circle mastermind groups. So I know that he has a process. I know that he's been embracing project development and design more and more, but it's still fairly new. So one of the thoughts here, Rob, when you say I need a more organized sales process, two things come to mind. Number one, be really confident in the process you have, because you have a sales process, and sometimes just really following what you have, being confident in it, telling the client, here's what happens next, reminding yourself, because it's kind of new, of exactly what you're doing in each step is also important. But I think you already have kind of the framework and foundation, and you're already having success with it. So it's not so much I need to reinvent my sales process, and you even kind of said that. I just need to be more organized with it. So study your process. Get really clear with what's included and where you're doing different things. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I guess leaning into that a little bit more, is to get really clear with the steps that are involved. How many steps does your process have once they sign the project development agreement? Maybe there's 8 things that happen once that happens. That would help you get organized, right? Well, they've signed a design agreement. We're through 1, 2, and 3, and we're on step number 4 with them. With this client, we signed the project development agreement. We're still working on step number 2. We've done the in-person final measurements, and now we're working on the initial design concepts, right? So your process is going to have, in-person meeting for final measurement. It's going to have initial design concepts. It's going to have, initial scope of work. It's going to have boom, boom, boom. You're going to have these different steps. So get really clear with what those steps are. That's going to help you feel more organized, and just continue to embrace it, embrace it, embrace it. The other thing you wrote was, it will help me with a better design process and be able to forecast revenue better. And what I took that to mean is you'll be able to forecast when they're going to be able to sign when they're going to be kind of at the conclusion of the design and development so that you can schedule them for production. That's kind of how I read that. One little reminder that I may have already touched on and that I would like to touch on here is that, nothing and nobody gets on your production schedule until these 6 things happen. Nice pause, Kyle. Well, what are those 6 things? You get questions, especially when you're in design and development. When are you guys going to start? When are you guys going to start? When are you guys going to start? When can we start? The answer is, well, nobody gets on our production schedule until these 6 things happen, until these 4 things happen, until these 7 things happen. Well, what are the 7 things? Well, what they are is we have a finalized and signed off design. We have finalized the scope of work. We have completed our selection list and all of our selections are made. We have signed the completed contract. We have, we have received a down payment on the project. Fill that in with whatever your 6 things are, 5 things are, 7 things are, and that can be a very powerful way to keep people moving and motivated through the design and project development. It also gives you a much clearer, powerful answer to that question of when can we start? So, that's my take on that is nobody gets on your production schedule until fill in the blank happens, and really embrace that and get clear with that. Some people will start to move a little quicker and make decisions quicker. So Rob, I hope that was helpful. I think to get more organized with it, slow down, get really clear with what those steps are, and just work to follow it. I hope that was helpful. That whole until these 6 things happen, I shared that last week with one of my remodel groups, and that was one of their takeaways from a full day meeting was, ooh, I really like that. That's a question you guys get often, and it's a hard one to answer. All right, rock and roll. Tate just liked this. Cool. We got 7 likes. Any takeaways so far or any questions? Feel free to toss in there. All right, Rob said good stuff. My work here is done. Moving on to the next one. Chris Mosley said, I want to be able to shorten my sales cycle and take on more projects to grow my business. So I want to shorten my sales cycle. Why? Because I want to take on more projects to grow my business. And he said, hard to see next steps. And then Tate, I know you're watching, he said something similar. I'm trying to do the same as Chris. I can see next steps, but it's taking too long to get there. Gentlemen, I would say 2 of the finest gentlemen in all of Remodelers community, Chris and Tate. Here's a couple thoughts that I wrote down related to your questions. Number 1 is, where's the bottleneck? Let's just cut to the chase. Where in your sales process, where in your sales cycle is the bottleneck? Is it you? Is it an outside designer? Is it the selection process? Where's the bottleneck? And you might say, well, there's a couple, Kyle. Okay, cool. Let's get really clear with where the biggest pain and the biggest increase in the sales cycle, or what I call cycle time. Actually, I call it that, but I got it from my boy Bob Burnside with Fireside Home Construction years ago. We got to reduce cycle time. We got to reduce cycle time. So number 1, where's the bottleneck? Where's the bottleneck? And then once you identify that a little clearer, let's look at some of the ways to improve that. One thing that comes to mind is, do we have staffing issues? Are you just too spread thin where, yes, you want to shorten your sales cycle, but you just don't have the time to do what you need to do on the estimating and design and selections because you're still wearing the other hats in the business, production, et cetera, et cetera. So one thing is, you have staffing issues. Who can help you that may already be on your team? I'm seeing more and more of my clients bring in outside interior designers and really saying, here's the list of 12 selections that we need to make. Inside our project design and development, you have 8 hours already included with this interior designer. If you go over the 8 hours, we bill that at $110 an hour. But in those 8 hours, he or she will be able to walk you through and help you make those selections. Now, all of a sudden, that's off your plate, Chris. That's off your plate, Tate. You found somebody to help with that. Maybe you love working with chief architect, but you need to figure out a way to sub out more of your design work, whether it's bringing somebody on staff and making that investment, or working hard to find outside resources who could take on the design work for you. Paul McManus is talking up that Canvas app, which allows you to take some pictures, pay $40, and they create the chief architect design, and that saves him 2, 3, 4 hours of initial design work in chief architect. So that's my first thing, is a staffing issue. The second thing that comes to mind, are you taking on too many at once? Are you working on too many designs and developments all at once? So this can go actually to the start by saying, when you get new appointments, you can say something like, we take 2 new appointments per week. This week is full, next week is full, and the following, and the following week is full. I'm taking appointments for the second week in April for that initial meeting. Giving yourself time in between those initial appointments to do the preliminary budgets or to keep going on the developments throughout the process. So it's something that can help. When they sign with you, when they sign the design agreement or professional development agreement or professional services agreement, making sure that doesn't mean that you have to immediately start it. Maybe you say, awesome, we're going to focus in and really drive yours forward that first week in April, and communicate that to them. Sometimes we're trying to, do 6 or 7 all at once, and we get them all 50% completed versus doing 2 or maybe 3 at once and driving it across the finish line. So try to maybe space them out more. Communicate, this is how we work. The reason we do that is because when we start working on it, we want to really stay focused and dedicated to it. So there's some other ideas. Another idea for you guys is be deadline driven. Make sure that next meeting is always booked. When that next meeting that you have in design and development is not booked and it's just lingering out there, that lingering turns something that should be happening next Tuesday into the following Thursday. Not because you don't want to keep it moving, but because you're busy. So every time you end a meeting with a design and development client, book that next meeting, whether it's a Zoom call, whether it's an in-person meeting. That can go a long ways in improving and shortening your sales cycle. And also give clients deadlines. Everybody on earth works better with deadlines. So when they have selections that they're looking at or when they have decisions they need to make, let's get clear on when are you going to aim to have that decision done by. Deadline driven. And lastly, what gets measured gets improved. So if you're starting to pay closer attention to how long it's taking you from the signed design and development agreement to when you present to them the initial designs, to when you present to them the initial scope of work. If you're actually measuring that and paying attention to that, you can't help but get better. So make sure you're measuring the key points in the sales cycle so that you can start to have a little bit of tracking on how long things are taking. You'll be able to see which areas are dragging on, and those numbers and dates won't lie to you. So bottleneck, is this a staffing issue? Or are you taking on too many at once? Make sure you're being deadline driven. Make sure you're measuring this so that you can improve it. I don't care what you guys say. That's some stinking good advice right there. That might have been the best answer out of all these. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you get value from it. It felt pretty good. Chris says, "Oh shucks." Tate says, "Yup, I'm the bottleneck. Too many hats." So to give you some tough love, Tate, it's like, "Yep, I'm the bottleneck, too many hats." This is a Gary Vee line. And he goes, "And?" Well, Kyle, there's too many hats. Like I'm trying to keep this going. I'm sure trying to keep this going. And eventually once we get past like the challenge of, we get to, okay, and what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do about it? Tate, you'll have this exact same problem 6 months from now, unless you make changes to the process and either bring on less design work so you have less to do in development work, unless you find an outside source to help you take on some of this work or hire somebody in-house. Definition of insanity, doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. And it's easy because we're like, well, maybe it'll slow down. Maybe we're just in a little bubble here where there's just a ton of work. But once I get, I love hearing this. Once I get through this estimate, then I'll have a lot more time on their hands. I get fed that line as a business coach often. And let me tell you, the majority of the time, when we get to that estimate, we don't automatically have all this extra time on your hands, right? So don't try to Band-Aid a true wound and issue in your business. Sometimes we need to create a new position or figure out how to do this differently. And yes, and it's mean. It's a mean way of saying it. But, I do the same thing. I catch myself making excuses. Well, I'm not promoting Remodelers Autopilot as much as I was meaning to this month because, I'm working on this new course. And, well, you don't understand. Like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And because I've got a goal of that. And if I just make excuses and give myself out as to why it's not getting better, I ain't going to improve. I'm not going to make it happen. But once I get to the root of stop making excuses, Kyle, and what are you going to do to change it, that's where action happens. So I think there's some truth in that for you guys on that topic. So if that was helpful. Cool. Next one up. Next one up is Elijah McDonald. He said, we need to implement a strict bookkeeping system so that I don't dread it and can hand it off to somebody, so that I don't dread it and hand it off to somebody. I've never chatted with Elijah, so I'm going to make some assumptions just based on what he wrote here. I like that he said don't dread it. So one thing that I wrote down is, Elijah, true or false, you're not doing a good job at this right now. And I think if he's dreading it, chances are he's not killing it, keeping everything up to date, and he just dreads it. Chances are he's like me before I hired a bookkeeper. I got all the intentions in the world of making sure I stay on top of my bookkeeping, and it just never happens until I have to meet with my accountant at the end of the year, or during tax time or whatnot. Invoices, I'm the man back then at getting invoices out because that's how I get paid. But keeping all of the bookkeeping and expenses and having accurate P&Ls every month for years and years, I was just like best of intentions, but I dreaded it. I didn't like doing it. I was busy doing other things. So Elijah, one thing is like, you're not doing a good job at this right now, and you need to hand it off to somebody sooner rather than later. And in your case, when you're behind on bookkeeping, our job costing is behind. Our ability to look at our overall business budget and actuals behind. Our accounts payable and receivables are behind, and it's draining you. It's stressing you out. You're always thinking about it. So that's something to just kind of keep in mind of like, okay, if this is a problem and it's been a problem for a long time and I dread it, give yourself a deadline of when you're going to have this solved. You know what? By May 30th, January, April, March, May, actually the 31st. Did you guys know this trick? This is for the video people. If you start with this knuckle, that's January, February, March, April. You count the in between your knuckles, and the short months. Well, February is 28 or 29. Are shorter months, and then the knuckles are the taller months. So January is 31 days, 28, 31, 30, 31, 30, and it helps you know how many days are in the month. How do you like them apples? So I was counting, and then I realized, May's a knuckle month, so it's 31 days. Some of you are saying, how about you just memorize it, and then you don't have to worry about it, Kyle? Well, I got 4 kids. I got a lot of clients. I got a lot of things to remember. Sometimes it's helpful to have the knuckle trick. And if you got a problem with that, maybe I'll take these knuckles and punch you out. Those of you who know me know that I've never punched anybody, and that I probably am just all talk and no action. But anyways, so by May 31st, Elijah, 2021, you will have a solution in place for the bookkeeping system. Sometimes giving yourself that deadline, now you can work back from it. All right, what needs to happen in order for that to happen? And a couple other thoughts is sometimes we put it off because we're like, okay, I've got to get this system totally dialed in and get everything in place before I hire somebody. In the best of cases, in the best world, that's wonderful if you can do that. But this ain't a perfect world we live in. And sometimes we just have to hire somebody and say, look, I don't have this dialed in very well. So the 2 of us are going to kind of tag team getting this process and getting this system in place. So sometimes if you're not going to get it done, if you're not going to get the system kind of step by step in place, it's okay to hire somebody and say, look, I wanted to hire you and have this system all dialed in. It ain't all dialed in. But between the 2 of us, we're going to dial this in. We're going to document it. We're going to get this process locked in. So that can be a good thing. Of course, make sure you have checked and balances. You don't have to hand over the keys to the kingdom on that. And then the other thing I wrote down for you, Elijah, is what's the next right thing? When you think about this challenge that you have and what you want to fix, get really clear with what is the next right thing that needs to happen in order to move this forward. If you get clear with that, you're going to be off to the races. Okay, Tate said, and I got to get moving on hiring and handing off. Yes, give yourself a deadline, right? This whole, well, I got to just get moving on it and I got to hire, by April 30th, 2021, or in this case, Tate, it sounds like you already know what you need to do. By stinking, March 31st, hang on, I got to do the knuckle thing. Oh yeah, 31. By March 31st, 2021, I'm going to have decision made or plan in place to make this happen. You're on a major content roll. Sometimes I feel a little frisky. This was a good call, a good show. It is 12:31 Eastern Standard Time. I've got both of my vehicles out here because yesterday my wife and son came to my office and we were going to my son's basketball game. And then, like we normally do, my wife can just, we don't have to pick up your car. Can't you let's just leave it there. I'm not going anywhere tomorrow, and then you can come home and pick us up, and then we can go do it tomorrow night. whenever that happens, it always comes back and bites us. She just realized Thomas needs to be for pictures earlier, and I've got a webinar at 3 o'clock, so I've got to jet home, jet back for my 1 o'clock. All that to say I got to get going, and also to say at 3 o'clock, Bailey, can you put the link to the webinar in there? At 3 o'clock today, I'm bringing the heat related to Google reviews. The title of it, Enough Excuses. Get 5 Google reviews this month. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. We're going to have a little fun, and we're going to make sure that important part of your marketing is rocking and rolling. All right. Have a good one, people. Catch you next time.